Nice cup of coffee. Yet another UFO stories. These are just the floodgate has been open on this. This is from Daily Mail by Josh Boswell, June the 9th of 2023. A former Marine claims he and five comrades saw a flying saucer being loaded with weapons while serving in Indonesia in 2009 and was threatened at gunpoint by unmarked U.S. forces at the scene. Why have they started referring to people as comrades, everybody? Somebody explained that one to me. It says the wild story comes after an Air Force whistleblower from the government's UFO office joined growing numbers of intelligence officials claiming the U.S. has recovered and is even reverse engineering crashed or landed non-human aircraft. Michael Herrera, was a 20-year-old rifleman sent on a Navy humanitarian mission during the 2009 Sumatra earthquake and tsunami that devastated the region. In an exclusive interview with DailyMail.com, he claims that while guarding an airdrop of aid supplies outside the city of Padang in October that year, his six-man unit stumbled across a hovering octagonal craft in apparent use by clandestine U.S. forces. After 14 years of silence, Herrera was emboldened by new UFO whistleblower protections and in April testified under oath to the government's UFO investigation team, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the AARO, as well as a Senate committee. He provided his unblemished 4-year service record and text about the incident with an alleged fellow witness who refused to talk, saying it was not worth my life or jeopardizing my family. Peripheral aspects of his account were verified by DailyMail.com using military sources, but 33-year-old Herrera does not have documentation or photos of the incident itself. Of course he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. The Denver native joined the Marines fresh out of high school. He had been serving for less than 2 years when he was deployed to the Philippines as a member of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit to help distribute aid in the wake of a typhoon. When a 7.6 magnitude earthquake struck Sumatra on September the 30th of 2009, his 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines Echo Company, 2nd Platoon was rerouted to help guard helicopter aid drops around Padang City beset by violence from local insurgents. Herrera said that around October the 8th, he and 5 Marines were dropped off at a clearing in the northeastern part of the city by a CH-53 chopper and hiked 900 feet up a range to take their positions for the incoming supply drop. It was then that he spotted a strange object in the jungle on the other side of the hill. He said, quote, I could see something moving and rotating. It was changing colors between a very light matte gray to a very dark matte black. It stuck out like a sore thumb, end quote. Oddly, he said, they had not been given radios, so instead of calling it in, they edged down the hill in formation to investigate, while Herrera snapped photos and video on his Panasonic camera. Herrera told DailyMail.com, quote, the thing was massive, the size of a football field. The craft was rotating in a clockwise motion while changing colors. It had an audible hum to it, like the sound of a transformer or a guitar amp. It was an octagonal shape with a pyramid at the top which was black. It had scales that were on the outside of the craft that covered the whole craft. It had seams and sharp edges, which I suspect to be man-made. Nothing on it was smooth. It had some panels on the vertical edges that were like Vantablack, end quote. According to AARO's statistic of UFO reports between 1996 and 2023, only 1% are polygons, like an octagon, 2% disc-shaped, while 52% are orbs or spherical. However, an object shot down in February over Lake Huron, Michigan by F-16 fighter jets after their first missile missed were described as octagonal by Congress members briefed on the incident. Herrera claimed that when he and his 5 comrades got within 150 feet of the craft, they were ambushed by 8 men wearing all-black camouflage, bulletproof vests, wielding M4 rifles with high-end night vision attachments given to elite U.S. troops. He said, quote, "They had their weapons drawn on us. We could audibly hear their weapon safety levers flipping off safe," end quote. He said that 2 of them yelled with American accents, "Who the fuck are you guys? What are you doing here?" They said we weren't supposed to be there and that they could kill us. As the men continued to threaten them, took the Marines' weapons, dumped their ammunition, and scanned their military IDs, Herrera said that he saw others loading large weapon cases and other containers from modified Ford F-350 trucks on a platform beneath the craft. Herrera said, quote, "When the last 2 trucks finished unloading and drove off, the lower part of the platform rose off the ground to about 10 foot, and the craft lowered to meet it, and it came together in one piece. On the corners of the craft, it had lights that were changing between blue, red, yellow, and green. It rose off the ground and a little past the trees, then shot off to our left towards the ocean at around 4,000 miles per hour. We can't believe this is fucking happening. From a dead stop, it didn't make any sound like a sonic boom. It didn't disturb the trees like rotor wash would. We could see coconuts on the trees and none of them were disturbed," end quote. Herrera said the 8 unmarked soldiers gave them back their unloaded guns and marched them back over the hill, quote, "still telling us how they could kill us," end quote. He stated, quote, "Once we got over the hill and they told us to get the fuck away from here and don't look back," end quote. Herrera said the 6 Marines ran back to the aid drop site and were scolded by their gunnery sergeant for returning early, adding that they all kept quiet about the disturbing encounter. He said, quote, "I was fucking scared. I was thinking, I could have been killed. How the hell am I going to explain this?" end quote. Back on the USS Denver, Herrera's unit was debriefed by a rear admiral he didn't recognize. He said it was odd to have such a high-ranking officer there, and again, none of them mentioned the saucer and unmarked troops. He stated that a few days later, they were docked in Subic Bay in the Philippines. After an evening of drinking with his colleagues, he returned to find his camera's card and battery removed from his locked locker, along with his 5 comrades' phones missing. In early December of 2009, he was back at Camp Hansen in Okinawa, Japan. He was told to report to the office, where he found an Air Force lieutenant colonel in full uniform, but no name tag. Herrera said, quote, "He starts telling me, 'You're not allowed to talk about what happened, not to your chain of command, not even a general. You will go to prison or you will die.' He told me to keep my mouth shut and slid a paper to me on which was an NDA. The only thing I can recall is that it said TS/SCI, top secret/sensitive compartmented information, and it had Indonesia on it," end quote. The rifleman said he signed and was told to get the fuck out of there. Herrera stated, quote, "I ran back to the barracks and haven't talked about it ever since. It's something I've kept secret for almost 14 years, but I've thought about it every single day," end quote. He left the Navy in October of 2011, his certificate of release showing 4 years of active duty and medals for National Defense Service, Global War on Terrorism Service, Humanitarian Service, Sea Service Deployment, and Sharpshooter Rifle Badge. Herrera made several $1,000,000 as an entrepreneur and now runs a private security company called Valkyrie Eye. New UFO whistleblower protections enacted in December of 2022 prompted the ex-Marine to finally tell his story. Last year's annual military funding bill, the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, included a new clause allowing whistleblowers to report previously undisclosed UFO material retrieval, material analysis, and reverse engineering programs to the Pentagon's AARO team without fear of prosecution for violating their security oaths and non-disclosure agreements. Herrera said in 2017 he met UFO activist Dr. Stephen Greer at a conference, and Greer helped persuade him to talk and connected him with congressional and AARO staffers earlier this year. Herrera is also planning to tell his story at a press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. on June the 12th of 2023, organized by Greer alongside 4 other UFO witnesses. The Marine claims his 5 former comrades are too scared to come forward. In a May 3rd, 2023 text message, one wrote, quote, "This is asking too much of me and it's not worth the risk. It's not worth my life or jeopardizing my family. I know we go way back, but this is asking too much. You need to get out of whatever you are in and don't get me involved with this mess. My career isn't worth helping you. Don't ask me to do this shit ever again," end quote. DailyMail.com verified the sender was a Marine serving in the same unit in 2009. Greer told DailyMail.com, quote, "It sounds a bit like science fiction, but it actually is science fact. These breakthroughs have been kept very, very secret, much to the detriment of the American people and the planet. We feel it's very important that the public understand this is not just a silly story about little green men. This has very significant implications for the environment, for energy independence, for global poverty." I'm sorry, it's Stephen Greer. There's a little cynicism that has to show through. Greer and his organization, the Disclosure Project, gained international attention as well as derision in 2001 when he gathered 20 retired Air Force, Federal Aviation Administration, and intelligence officers at the National Press Club to tell their stories of extraordinary UFO and alien encounters. The 2001 conference did not spark congressional hearings as Greer hoped. Leslie Keene, an investigative journalist who was the first to bring Air Force whistleblower David Grush forward to make his bombshell claims in her story in engineering news site The Debrief this week, said she was skeptical of Greer's approach in an interview with The New Yorker in 2021. Keene said, quote, "There were some good people at that conference, but some of them were making outrageous, grandiose claims. I knew then that I had to walk away," end quote. Grush has also reportedly released a statement distancing himself from Greer after Greer claimed that he had met with the senior military intelligence official in March of 2022 in Culpeper, Virginia. Grush reportedly said in a statement published on Twitter by UFO researcher Vinnie Adams this week, quote, "I took my job very seriously, and early on I allowed various individuals that alleged that they had information to speak their truth as part of my evaluation process. I emphatically request that Stephen Greer cease using my name to promote his personal agenda," end quote. Greer, an ER doctor, spent the 2 decades following his 2001 press conference collecting UFO witnesses and has now assembled a database of 746 people in or related to the U.S. government. Some have detailed and compelling stories and have even testified to AARO. Others are merely senior officials who made public statements acknowledging the possibility of UFOs having non-human origins. According to the database, 76 have passed away. According to a press release, Greer will also be unveiling a Disclosure Project intelligence archive with over 5 terabytes of government documents, whistleblower testimony, and specific locations of illegally operated UFO projects. Greer has become a controversial figure even among UFO enthusiasts, making disputed claims and charging up to $3,500 for group sessions where he purports to teach and perform summonings of extraterrestrials using psychic powers. A video of one of his contact events in Vero Beach, Florida, on January the 27th, 2015, shows a light appearing over the Atlantic Ocean, which Greer attributed to aliens. A July 2020 article by the Washington Examiner questioned whether it was in fact faked with a flare dropped from a Beech 76 Duchess plane that was flying offshore at the time. Prominent figures have chided Greer over his statements, including the late sixth man on the moon, Edgar Mitchell, who said Greer would, quote, overreach his data continuously, end quote, and former CIA Director James Woolsey, who wrote that a 1993 briefing Greer claimed he gave Woolsey was merely a distorted account of a dinner party. Greer called the allegations ridiculous and untrue and said his June 12, 2023 press conference was about the witnesses, not him. Greer said, quote, I would give anything to have someone else do this so I don't have to, but I don't see that happening. I just say the track record of what we've done over 30 years stands on its own, end quote. Now, I'm not a fan of Stephen Greer at all. I have tried to listen to him. I think I actually did make it through a documentary at one point, and it's like I wish I hadn't have. I should have trusted my gut. There is just something. You can watch him for a few minutes, you can listen to, and there's something that just does not sit right. And that's, yeah, that's fact on that. And with this Marine that has come forward, I would like to see him speak personally the way that I did Grush, because after hearing his interviews, I had a different take on it. So, going to kind of wait to hear what Mr. Herrera says as he says it. Not going to get all excited about it. I haven't been that excited about any of this, except that we're being bombarded with it. I don't believe in coincidence. This is by design. Makes you wonder what they're trying to throw us off the scent of. That could be many, many things in today's world. So this is just the first of the UFO reports. There was, like, over the weekend, several large ones. So we'll get to those one at a time. If you've had experiences with the paranormal, supernatural, encounters with UFOs, aliens, cryptids, you can send us an email, cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. Link to this article will be in the description box, as will the email address. Do all that stuff, like, share, comment, subscribe. Yeah, any of that. Share the, like I said, share the mirth of your local low-watt pirate radio station that's on the inner zones. Know that you're loved. And Lord willing, we'll see you on the next cup. Bye.